One.
Coming to you live from deep within now sort of rainy, but also nicely warm, radioactive wasteland. We are the survivors of the alt-right Keckpocalypse. Keckpocalypse. The few, the brave, the bitchy, once more wading into battle against the pill boy froggy hordes with the pill makes women horny for girly men. Rantzerker number 244. I'll be your host, Allison, and with me is the indomitable Karen, and in the void, a voice coming from the void is Brian. So let's just get started. Let's cue up the Twitter, the tweets, the Exeter, the Ixer, or whatever we're calling it now, and let's watch
but there
that.
is a study that's been out that's getting popularity and more widely known that women on birth control, that actually changes your hormones and your attraction. So women who are on birth control, and this is more, there's more Democrats who are on birth control than conservatives because of some religious reasons. But it actually changes who you're attracted to, and there's multiple reports. You could just Google this if you weren't aware of this, of girls who like leave birth control when they want to start families or just decide to do a different sort of method of pregnancy prevention, that they leave their partners because they're not attracted to them, because birth control makes you attracted to betas. And women, if they're natural, not on birth control, they're actually attracted to more alpha, cavemen, providers, protectors. But birth control changes how they're women are. That's why they like the soy boy betas, the more effeminate metro, type guys. Are you familiar with this data?
My mouth is hanging open. No, but I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's logical because it has to do with the hormone levels, and that's what birth control is.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
exactly. So,
oh my gosh.
So birth control, it's a growing study that indicates that women who are on birth control, that's why they like these betas, and why our society is becoming more pacified because of birth control in women. And it's actually kind of concerning because it's changing our culture and our values because of birth control. And it's kind of fascinating, but also scary, because what does that mean? Because there's a lot of people on birth control, and now we're changing our society away from men who are, alpha
providers,
and providers, protectors, doers, builders, for these, these effeminate, girly boys. I mean, it's very interesting.
Okay, so that was Minnesota GOP senatorial candidate Adam Schwartzy. I believe that's, correct me if that's wrong. And he's talking about how the birth control pill changes women's desires and attractions to men. And so just a bit of background. I want to point out that we had a guest at the International Conference on Men's Issues in 2019, Aidan Paladin, who did an extensive analysis of the research behind statements like this. Now, this statement is sort of a little bit, I would say, dumbed down for an audience so that people can sort of ingest the idea on probably a a simpler level than what Aidan presented. But the science is there. It's not exactly what he's saying, but it is there, and it is showing something very similar to what he's saying. So, but of course, the left, the statists,
the people who are like, follow the science, right? And if you don't believe in science, you're anti-science. They don't want to look at it because it's an extremely inconvenient fact, and it correlates with other research on women who are not on the pill. Mm-hmm. Right? That when women are approaching ovulation, which is a sort of a higher androgen state, estrogen is counteracted with higher levels of androgen. They are more attracted to more masculinized faces and bodies, and then when they are approaching menstruation, after they've ovulated and their ovulation has been borne no fruit, they become more attracted to the Ryan Reynolds type of person who's a little bit more effeminate, a little bit less intimidating. And that's just how it goes. I mean, there's all kinds of research on women's hormone cycles and attraction, including research on men and what men are attracted to, and the fact that when women are approaching ovulation, when they're the most fertile in the 3 to 4 days before ovulation and the 2 days or so after ovulation, they change their gait, they sway their hips more. It's completely subconscious, and also that men, for some reason, whether it's pheromones that they detect through their noses or whether it's visual cues like the greater hip sway, they actually tip strippers who are on the verge of ovulation more than they do at any other point in their menstrual cycle, right? So it's like strippers earn more when they're about to ovulate, right? So it's like, and that's a completely subconscious transaction that's completely voluntary on the part of the men who are sticking the dollar bills in their G-strings, right? And it's not just this situation where women might wake up after they go off the pill because, after being together for 4 years, right, with this sort of less masculine man
that she got into a
she
relationship with when she was on the birth control.
when she was on the pill, that she might wake up and say and think to herself, well, I'm not really that attracted to this guy right now because now she's ovulating and she's probably trying to get pregnant, so she's probably trying to time her sexual activity with her ovulation cycle, right? Which is the point of lowest attraction to that kind of man, right? So but it's not just that. It's not just that. It's that the pill turns women into Lannisters. And that's been known for a long time. Women have you might, if you read any of my comments or writings about the mRNA jibby jabbies, right? You will see me bringing up something called the major histocompatibility complex, which is the way your body at a cellular level recognizes what is self and what is not self, right? And there's a mechanism tied to women's major histocompatibility complex wherein they are able to identify the optimum sexual partners, male sexual partners, based on smell, right?
Yeah, and in terms of the compatible or a different immunological profile. So you want a man who complements your immunological profile.
You want hybrid vigor in your offspring. You don't want to
reproduce with your brother, essentially.
To inbreed, right? So
or your cousin.
Yeah, and I mean, like I used to experience this all the time when I was not on the pill, right? And I'd be like washing clothes when I was living with my parents. I'd be doing laundry, and my dad's bath towel, even though it was like he'd only used it for a week, it just smelled awful, right? Same with my sons. I can't stand the way their bath towels smell. And and it's just you just kind of know. But when you
it's to prevent inbreeding, essentially. And human beings actually suffer really badly from inbreeding. Other animals might not as much, but we really do. Within a couple generations of inbreeding, we're having flipper babies. So
and so it's like you have this situation where when a woman is pregnant, and when she's nursing, so she's no longer in danger of becoming pregnant by a relative when she's already pregnant. And the risks of that are extremely low when she's breastfeeding and nursing. And historically, like over millennia, that can be anywhere from 2 to 4 years after giving birth, right? That mechanism shuts off because it's in your best interest as a new mother, as a pregnant woman and as a new mother, to be around your male kin. You're not in danger of being impregnated by one of them, but they are probably your most reliable providers and protectors because they're your kin, right? So the mechanism turns off because you don't need it anymore, and because it's in your best interest to be close in close proximity to the people that mechanism warned you to not get close to. And so you're looking at all this, as RFK Jr. said, this chronic disease epidemic, right? With, autism and allergies and asthma and ADHD and all kinds of other things, right? That all carry a heritable component, right? They all carry a component of genetic heredity, right? And they're off the charts now over the last.
I see what you're getting at.
They're after the last 2 generations, and basically since the advent of the pill, right?
So the pill is
turned women into Lannisters.
Yeah, to prefer men who are more genetically similar. And
no,
it's like,
they don't. No. It's not that they prefer them. It's just that they don't prefer the ones that are genetically dissimilar. All men smell the same, okay, to them, and so it's the alarm system turns off.
Okay, so the alarm system turns off. So, but the overall point of talking about this is it's more complex than the Minnesota, the Adam Schwartzy is saying. It's also more complex than the statist, the left's response to what he's saying. Because let's start up the article and we'll get into that. I also want to mention another thing. Birth control in the water, or estrogens in the water, are also affecting young men.
Oh,
so
God, no.
The discussion is bigger than women. It's much bigger than women.
It's not just the birth control pill affecting men and feminizing men. It's like we inject cattle and other livestock with hormones, and then they pee, and their pee just runs down into the groundwater and into our drinking water sources, and it can't be filtered out. It's not neutralized by water treatment plants, and we also, like, there is a lot of soy being consumed in various forms. There's also, and they contain so many phytoestrogens that menopausal women are recommended by their doctors to eat soy or take soy supplements in order to control their symptoms, because they're, it's loaded with estrogens. So it's, like we have all of these, and then on top of that, you have endocrine disruptors like bisphenol A and phthalates, right? Bisphenol A makes plastics hard. Phthalates make plastics soft and pliable, right? And so, bisphenol A has now been banned in food packaging for foods targeted for children 5 and under, right? So the lining of juice boxes and the lining of baby formula containers and the lining of baby food containers and things like that. But if you're like I was as a mother, I never bought baby food. I never bought formula. I breastfed my kids exclusively, and then I bought them. I fed them what the family ate, right? And none of these packaging components, these plastics, the bisphenol A, none of them are banned in cans of tomatoes or cans of corn or cans of soup for adults, right? None of them are banned in any of the product packaging, food product package, and they leach, right? Or in drinking containers or whatever that are marketed to everybody, like water bottles and things like that. So you're looking at these things leach into the foods and into the water that they contain. And then you have the phthalate issue, which is the cornerstone of the soft baby toy industry, which is rubber duckies. The reason why the rubber ducky squeaks, why you can squeeze it, is because it's full of phthalates. And what do babies do with everything they pick up? They put it in their mouths, and it leaches in, and it crosses the placental barrier. It interferes with male sexual development in the womb and also after birth. And so we're looking at a situation where we have a crisis on our hands, and there are various ways that we could prove this, right? In terms of homosexuality and transgenderism
Okay, just a sec. I just
being
want
on
to
the
remind
rise.
Brian that we're going to be moving to the article. So if you could cue it up, that would be really appreciated.
Which article? The
that-
GOP says number of women on birth control concerning the New York Post one?
Yes,
Newsweek,
that
I mean?
one.
Okay. I just
Yep.
wanted to know which one
Sorry.
it was. You just said article. That's not
Okay.
enough for me. So
All right.
But we literally have a situation where homosexuality and bisexuality and transgenderism and non-binaryism and all of these things are on the rise.
Good Lord. Like, just before, I want to continue. I want to just point something out. There's two people in the chat who are saying this is tinfoil hat time.
No,
okay,
it's not.
Why don't you
Okay,
wrap
what's the
yourselves
conspiracy
in
theory?
asbestos and guzzle thalidomide? Like,
Yeah,
come on.
What's the conspiracy theory here?
Yeah, what's the
these-
conspiracy? Everybody, like, there are now warnings on BHA, like the plastic.
Bisphenol A.
Yeah, there are now warnings on this. This is not conspiracy. Why are you sucking up to corporations? What, do you believe they should be able to do anything? Put any kind of chemicals in our food and water? Just have that. Or are you the kind of people who would burn Aaron Brockovich at the stake for questioning the corporation? Like, shut up.
The hexavalent chromium issue, right? Oh yeah, no, but chromium's good for you. Not when it's hexavalent.
I just can't believe it. Like, I used to vote Green Party, for God's sake. And then all of you started sucking up to corporations. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Goodbye.
Yeah, no, it's insane. It's insane. And it's, like when you look at it,
all of you on the left is what I meant. All of you on the presumptive left, whoever you are that assumed the label, I don't recognize you anymore.
The idea is, but the accusation of conspiracy theory actually is part of the problem, because it is part of
somebody said in the special chat, the numbers aren't increasing. People were closeted before. Okay.
No. And there's
the numbers of gay men aren't increasing. It's the numbers of trans individuals.
You could easily track this. Okay. Medically track this. Okay. Not in the closet, not, it's a social contagion. You could find out easy peasy who is genuinely transgender, okay, and who is just going along with a fad, right, through an fMRI scan of their brain, right, of a certain structure in their brain called the interstitial nucleus of the anterior hypothalamus, third interstitial nucleus, INAH3, right, which in males is more female typical and in females is more male typical, and that brain structure sets sexual orientation and gender identity, right? And this is long established science in transsexuality and and exploration of homosexuality and transsexuality, right? Long established, right? That this organ in the brain, this particular structure in the brain, if you are gay, it's going to look a little more girly if you're a gay man. If you are a transgender male, woman, but a male who's a transgender woman, it's going to look really girly. Okay. And somehow we've gotten away from the science so much, right, that when some 13-year-old boy or girl suddenly decides to self-identify as trans and demand medical treatment, we don't scan their brains to see whether maybe it's some other kind of problem, right? Maybe it's an anxiety problem, social anxiety problem, depression. Maybe they're just a typical fucking teenager, because show me a teenager who isn't uncomfortable with their changing body.
Or even understanding their social relationships.
It
seems like identifying as one of these categories immediately gets you a set of friends, a set of supporters, people who are going to tell you what where your problems are coming from.
The Gay Straight Alliance is on your side now. And, at school, and there's a zero tolerance policy on bullying over being gay or trans, right? So it's like you look at these situations, right? There is science behind it, and nobody's using it. There is, I'm not saying transgender people don't exist. I'm not saying that being gay is not a biological condition, right? Or a physiological condition that has biological reasons. That's been known for the longest time, right? Twin studies, right? Even identical twins, right? If one twin is gay, gay, the other twin is 70% more likely than even the other siblings who were not twins to also be gay, right? So you're looking at a situation where there's tons of biology backing up trans people's right to exist, gay people's right to exist, right? That they were essentially or effectively, for the most part, born that way, right? And that, maybe we should be tolerant and maybe we shouldn't jump the gun and give them all kinds of treatment that affirms their condition, right?
Unless
Like when you have a 13-year-old, because 85%.
Okay, this is no
as of-
offense, Karen.
No, but just
Wrap it up.
listen. As of 2014, 85% of kids, of youth who identified as transgender, if you didn't do anything, if you didn't medicalize them, they grew out of it after puberty, right? Because they get another surge of hormones that changes their brain structures. And they become well-adjusted adults who identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. And usually they're gay, but sometimes they're not even gay, right? And instead of doing just letting them go through puberty, or maybe even just giving them a little bit of sex-affirming hormone, giving the boys a little testosterone, giving the girls a little estrogen, right? Instead of doing that, right, to help them resolve their confusion that they're having during adolescence, during puberty, right? Settle their symptoms down, right? We just go straight to the puberty blockers, blocking nature's cure, right? And fast track them into sex-affirming care, which is, or gender-affirming care, which is cross-sex hormone therapy.
Okay, let's get started on that article now, because this is a much more complicated issue, and somebody's talking about alpha and beta, but you know what? Let's set that aside. Let's get into the article. Brian, go ahead and start.
All right, I'm going to read from the article now.
And let's try to get large sections done before we comment.
All right, here we go. All right, GOP candidate says number of women in birth control concerning. So let me just switch scenes here. A GOP Senate candidate from Minnesota has said that he finds a number of women on birth control concerning because the pills not only change female hormones, but also change the kind of men women are attracted to. A statement a gender and public policy professor told Newsweek is absurd. Adam Schwartz.
Wait. He's a gender and public policy professor. He's not a biologist. He's not an endocrinologist. He's not even an OBGYN.
No. Let's keep going though.
All right. Yeah. No, totally not qualified to speak on this, but it doesn't matter.
That is the ideological position on this matter. Now let's move on to something else.
Adam Schwartz, said on the Meg F. Ellefson Show, a podcast and conservative talk radio program hosted by Ellefson, that birth control was making women more attracted to beta men as opposed to alpha cavemen. Newsweek has contacted Schwartzy via social media for comment. Why it matters. Access to birth control and reproductive rights has come into the spotlight since President Donald Trump started his second term in the White House, and requests for contraceptives, including long-term birth control and morning after pills and abortion pills, soared after his election victory. After Roe v. Wade was overturned by Republican-appointed Supreme Court justices, taking the constitutional right to abortion away from American women, concerns about what the Trump administration's plans are for reproductive rights have been escalating. While the Republican base in America is comprised of a large portion of religious groups, particularly evangelical Christians and Catholics who oppose birth control, a 2024 Navigator research survey found that 74% of Americans believe birth control should be easier to access.
Yeah, well, and 74% of Americans don't know what birth control actually does to a woman's body.
Yeah, so they're ignorant. Who cares what they think? Okay, let's keep going, Brian.
All right. What to know? Schwartz said in the interview that because of the influence birth control pills are having on women and their attractions, U.S. society as a whole is becoming more pacified. It's actually kind of concerning because it's changing our culture and values because of birth control, he said, adding it was fascinating but also scary. Saying that a lot of women are now using birth control, he added, "We are changing our society away from men who are alphas, providers, protectors, doers, builders, for those effeminate girly boys." According to research by KFF last year, 82% of American women of reproductive age reported having used some form of contraception in the previous 12 months. There are some studies that have indicated the birth control pill, i.e., an oral contraceptive, could influence what features women are attracted to in men, with one 2013 study finding that initiation of pill use significantly decreased women's preferences for male facial masculinity. A 2011 study also investigated the relationship outcomes of women using the pill, but stated that, quote, "We know neither whether these laboratory measured effects are sufficient to exert real world consequences, nor what these consequences would be," end quote.
I just want to get in here in a moment. No, wait, just like there is new research that has been published before this article went out. So there is no reason why the writers of this article could not have availed themselves of new research. This is shoddy research right here, guys, and I'm going to prove it to you when we go over that research. But continue this, finish this section, and then Heron, you can go.
The reasons behind possible changes to attraction have been attributed to female hormone levels. However, there is still limited research on the subject, and more rigorous studies are needed in order to determine whether birth control changes what kind of men women find attractive. By the way, just as an aside, this looks like it's literally written by AI. Like just the way that it's organized and everything. This is like ChatGPT. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's ChatGPT crap. But this is shoddy. Okay, and I just want to point that out. Let's keep going because there is more research that's come out recently. Continue, Brian.
Okay. Should I keep going or
no? Let Heron go.
Okay.
One second here. Okay, when you're talking about a safety signal or some kind of signal of some kind of unintended effect, right, of any medication, right? The idea is, right, okay, so if say I'm taking a medication and I get a side effect that isn't listed on the warning label of this medication, but I suddenly get a side effect that I notice, it's noticeable, right? What does my doctor tell me to do? Discontinue that medication, right? Discontinue it, right? If it's something that, is interfering with my life, right? Like, I don't know, when I was on the low androgen pill, right? Just all estrogen, I had zero sex drive, zero libido. It worked. I mean, like, it kept me from getting pregnant because the idea of even kissing someone was disgusting. Okay? It was gross. And then when I went on the higher androgen pill, I got a blistering fucking yeast infection that would not go away. Right? And it was just absolutely made it impossible to have sex. So I guess that one worked too. Prevented pregnancy like a charm, right? Because I wasn't having sex at all on either pill, okay? The doctor didn't say, well, that's not really associated with, there's no studies necessarily that, I mean, there are a few studies that suggest it, but none that really confirm the causality. He didn't say that. He said, stop taking it and switch to a different method.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is that we're not going to see these studies to any degree because this is against corporate profits. Nobody wants to.
Well, and it's against the ideological leanings of the left, which is any type of
strangely aligned with corporate profits.
Any type of birth control for all women and girls. Okay, because you could be like 14 years old and go to the doctor and ask for birth control, and they aren't even allowed to tell your parents, right? They just give it to you. So for any type of birth control for all women and girls without even a doctor's exam, right? They want this They want more accessibility. They don't even want to have to get a prescription from a doctor. They just want to be able to buy it over the counter.
Yeah. So, okay, the first two paragraphs after what people are saying just reiterate GOP senatorial candidate Adam Schwartz. So we don't need. Let's just go to Carrie Baker there,
All
Brian,
right.
because she's the she's the expert that they're
she's
interviewing.
the expert, the official. Okay. Carrie Baker, professor and chair of the program for the study of women, gender, and sexuality at Smith College, Massachusetts, told Newsweek, shocker, quote, the Schwartzy statement is absurd at multiple levels. First, the science is wrong. The original studies from the early 2010s were very small and only claimed to show a correlation between women's use of hormonal birth control and preference for men with facial features associated with lower testosterone levels. Later, larger longitudinal studies have disproven these associations. Regardless of the science, Schwartzy incorrectly assumes being an alpha caveman is the ideal form of masculinity that society should encourage. I disagree. American society has astoundingly high rates of male violence towards women, other men, and themselves. We should be encouraging nonviolent forms of masculinity. Finally, Schwartz insults women by saying those who use birth control are not natural.
Let me get in. I'm just going to talk about the errors in what she's saying. Well, first of all, I'm just going to point out that we now have women's studies professors opining on things that are better in physiology, chemistry. Like she has no actual expertise on any of this. I attempted to find the later, larger longitudinal studies, could only find one recently, which actually affirmed these findings. So we have to just take her word that she's actually looked into this and she isn't just bloviating or blowing it out her asshole that there are these studies.
Well,
I just want to point out.
She says, well, there's correlation, but those studies were small, and yes, they showed correlation, but not causation. Okay. Well, there was only correlation with thalidomide and freaking flipper babies, but you know what they did? They pulled it off the fucking shelves.
Yeah. And also correlation with that's the trick that the tobacco companies kept using. Oh, it's just correlation, just correlation. Like this is the eternal correlation. This is the eternal thing that I'm seeing now with the left and
when you're talking
the statists.
When you're talking, oh yeah, no, and the they literally they use it at their convenience, right? So when it comes to hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin in the treatment of or prevention of COVID-19. Right? Oh, there's no double-blinded randomized controlled trials showing a definite causation, a definite causal anything, right? Oh, you just have doctors in the field saying there's a correlation anecdotally, right? Okay. So, okay, fine. Okay. So I'm not saying we should have thought that those were the holy grails of fighting COVID, right? But they wanted double-blinded, randomized, controlled clinical trials.
Yeah, for one type of treatment and not for another.
For two drugs that have extremely long safety records in terms of human use, right? Like both of them are sold over the counter to humans in countries where parasitic and malarial infection are common, right? Okay, so you're looking at a situation where you have them poo-pooing, but then at the same time, right, when you have this massive 200 times larger freaking number of reports to the vaccine adverse events reporting system of severe adverse events associated with the COVID-19 vaccines, it's like something like 200 times as many, right, per patient, per dose, right, compared to other vaccines. They're like, oh, that's just correlation.
Yeah,
and those reports, they're just anecdotal.
Yeah. But then what is the red flag? What is the red flag for these kinds of interventions then? So basically there's no way to stop it. So if the big pharma gets behind an intervention, there's no way for us lab rats to say, hey, I think that the things that it's causing in us are not good. There's no way. We just go full steam ahead, no brakes. I actually pointed this out to somebody.
Yeah. And if you
But
actually,
yeah, I get
if
what
you
you're saying.
actually,
It's like
if you
it's
actually
hard.
want to prevent harm, right? And I'm sorry, but being gay or being trans complicates your life massively. Okay? Massively complicates your life compared to being heterosexual and cisgender, right? Okay? So, maybe it's the case that some people, no matter what you do, will remain gay or will remain trans throughout their entire lives, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? Because, but just because not all cancer patients respond to the treatment and survive does not mean that we just say, well, chemotherapy and radiation, we should just no. And you're acting like it's some kind of crime to have cancer now.
Ugh. Well, but the overall point is that it's causation for me and correlation for thee when it comes to this ideologically motivated science. But the other thing I wanted to point, I can't find the later longitudinal longitudinal studies that have disproven those associations. Like I said, the latest one that I found from 2024, which this article should have availed itself of, did show an association. Please don't do that. Don't go there. Don't go there, Void Cat. This is why I have that there, so that you aren't able to access my cord that leads to my Osmo. All right. So anyway, we only know correlation between Void Cat and the complete destruction, the technical difficulties that take down the strain. We don't have causation yet. We need to do a longitudinal study on Void Cats and technical difficulties.
Double-blinded, randomized controlled trial, Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
no,
right.
What happens when Void Cat is in the room versus what happens when Void Cat is not in the room? That may establish correlation.
Schrodinger's Void Cat. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to the next paragraph. Oh, and I also want to point out that American society does not have astoundingly high rates of male violence towards women, other men, and themselves.
Towards anyone, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually quite low.
Oh, and if we're actually going to talk about violence, how much soy do you think the Antifa boys, take before they set a Tesla on fire?
Yeah. Okay. Let's
All
get
right,
going.
so
next section.
Next paragraph. Kiara M. Bridges, the professor of law at UC Berkeley School of Law in California, told Newsweek,
she's an expert on biology.
Yeah, totally. Told Newsweek, comments like that. Wait. Well, hold on a second. I got to move some things around because you guys keep talking. Comments. I got it. Comments like that no longer hide the ball. They make explicit the commitment to traditional gender norms that informs both the conservative attacks on reproductive rights and conservative policies towards reproductive health. Schwartz aims to pathologize women who use hormonal contraception. Essentially, he thinks that women should not use them. This is consistent with a view that holds that women should either be celibate or constantly pregnant, giving birth to children throughout the entirety of their reproductive years. Of course, that's a lot of mind reading. That's a lot of mind reading from a really short statement, but okay.
I don't think any Republicans are against condoms.
No.
Or abstinence.
No.
Or even the rhythm method.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
Of course, these constantly pregnant women would find it difficult, if not impossible, to work outside the home during their reproductive years. So I imagine that Schwartz believes that they would just turn to alpha cavemen to provide for them. This view of women and women's roles is precisely what feminists reacted against in the mid-19th century and then again in the 1960s and 70s. Well, that's true. She added, I don't believe that there exists enough evidence to support the claim the hormonal contraceptive causes women to prefer different types of men. If more research is conducted in the future and that research supports the claim, then women considering taking these contraceptives should be informed about it, just as they are informed about all the other risks and possible consequences that accompany contraceptive use.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're not.
They aren't.
No, they aren't. Like when I went on the pill, my doctor didn't say, okay, he just wrote the script. He didn't say, okay, do you have a family history of stroke? Do you have a family history of vascular disease? Do you have a family history of high blood pressure? Do you have a family history of embolism? He didn't say any of that. He didn't ask me any of that. He was just like, oh, you're young and healthy. Boop, boop, boop. Here you go.
Yep. And and we need to, and also the studies are showing this. So at this point in time, doctors should inform women that the pill may be changing their selection of reproductive partners, and that when they come off the pill, they may find that there's a lot of stress on their relationship because they don't find their partners attractive anymore.
Or they find that they stink really bad.
Okay, let's do what happens next.
Because 40-year-old, like, marriage counselors have found for the last 20, 25, 30 years, and this is how the Lannister thing became like an actual hypothesis. They were like, you have no idea how many middle-aged couples I see who are on the verge of breaking up, splitting up, right? Where the woman says, I just can't stand the way he smells, right? And this wasn't the case when they met. It wasn't the case through their whole marriage. It's only the case now. And what's the difference? They've had their kids. He got snipped. She went off the pill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's finish the last couple paragraphs, and then we'll.
There's only one left. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. What happens next? The Trump administration has passed an executive order to prevent federal funding of elective abortion, alongside ending the forced use of federal taxpayer dollars to fund or promote elective abortion. Taxpayer dollars are by definition force-backed. However, it is not yet clear if the administration plans to alter women's access to birth control. Be afraid, be very afraid.
Okay.
Like access to birth control. Really, access to birth control. Like, okay, Don't Walk Run Productions had a video that I watched the first little bit of it, like showing some of these scare ads from Democrat PACs, right? And one of them was of, this couple, if it wasn't, they're looking at their little baby, and, if it wasn't for IVF, our little miracle wouldn't exist, right? And then this guy comes into the bedroom and scoops the baby out of the crib, and it starts crying, and who are you? What are you doing here? And he's like, I'm your Republican congressman, right? And this baby doesn't belong to you, right? It was conceived through artificial means, right? And we won't, through criminal means, and we won't allow a baby to be raised by criminals, right? So this baby is mine now, right? And I'm like, what the fuck? Are you? And then the same congressman, who incidentally looks exactly like Joe Biden, by the way. He's a couple having sex, and she grabs the condoms out of the nightstand, and he's sitting in the bedroom, and he takes them out of her hand. He's like, I'm sorry, you can't have those. Who are you? What are you doing here? I'm your Republican congressman, and we're banning birth control. Now that I've been elected, there's nothing you can do about it, right? And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me, right? Like, you can't have Republicans. You can't frame Republicans as being like, they don't want single motherhood to exist, right? They don't want women to, they don't want welfare queens who have like 5 freaking welfare babies, right? They don't want this. They don't want that, right? Okay. But they also don't want people to use, and they don't want like HIV being spread and other sexually transmitted infections being spread throughout. But they totally won't let you use condoms in the privacy of your own home, right? And it's like, okay, what? And they're going to ban IVF? Like, Trump actually basically said he wants IV. I don't know if he's managed to do it yet, but he wants IVF to be covered by health insurance.
Should I read the next thing, Allison? What are we doing now?
Okay, so put up the Science Direct article, or the Science Direct article. Take a look at that. Longitudinal changes in sexual desire and attraction among women who started using the Natural Cycles app. So essentially, they went off birth control and started to use natural cycles to control their fertile. Yeah, the rhythm method. Except, I'm guessing that the app and all of the ways of testing probably increase the reliability of it, Or
yeah, well, I mean, the
alternatively,
app reminds you, right? So
yeah, or alternatively, they're okay if they do have a child. They just want to space them more. Well, what happened, if you go down to the conclusions, when women went off the pill, they gained greater sexual desire.
yes,
But if they had chosen their partner
while
prior to
they were
going off
on the
the pill,
pill, yeah,
yeah. So they were on the pill when they chose their sexual partner. They did not actually report, at least not as much, increase in sexual desire for their partner. So this actually confirms what the GOP senatorial candidate said. Now, honestly, I think that the issue is not that. I mean, I think the alpha and beta. There was a commentator that made a point. Alpha and beta was based on wolves. It doesn't really apply. It's just a pop cultural shorthand. And
yeah,
I also think that the real problem is not that the pill makes women attracted to girly men. It's that when they come off, they stop being attracted to their partners.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, either they're going to have to stay on the pill for the rest of their lives, or they're going to have to go through a period of time where they realize that on a fundamental level, like a immunological level, not just facial symmetry, not just masculinization of faces, but on an immunological level, they are not attracted to their partners.
Well, okay. You're conflating the two phenomena.
Okay.
The one is simply being attracted to a certain type of man, right?
Yes.
And how he looks, a certain type of
That
body.
is,
Yeah. And a certain type of body, certain types of facial features, right? The masculinized body, the
no, I'm not
masculinized face.
complaining them. I'm saying that
Right.
that isn't the important. That isn't. It isn't
But
necessarily the problem.
that isn't that okay, that is completely unconnected to the immunological
Yes.
mechanism, right? Which has nothing to do with how masculinized or feminized your male partner is. It has to do with the way he stinks, the way he stanks. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, but
And
that's my point. It is that it's not necessarily that women are attracted to femboys or less masculine men, right? Because you could argue that a man who lives the Christian virtues is considered less masculine than Andrew Tate or whatever. But
certainly,
the point is that when she comes off the pill, she no longer finds him attractive. And it's not just she doesn't find him attractive because he's girly. It's also that she doesn't find him attractive on like a cellular level.
that she may not find him attractive.
May
on
not
a
find him
cellular
attractive on his yeah, your correlation versus causation. So, Brian, we were hearing your
air conditioning.
maybe. Yeah, thank you. So this is an important thing. It's something that women should know before they go on the pill. If they go on the pill, not in a committed relationship, if they meet their partner while on the pill, they may find if they go off the pill that the relationship breaks up because they can't maintain their sense of attraction to this man. And it doesn't matter
or maybe
if he's
actively repulsed
George
by him.
or Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, maybe actively repulsed by him. So, it's okay. Brian, what are you doing? Stop unmuting your mic.
Okay. So let's look at the second one, the Psychology Today article. Do contraceptive pills. And these two articles are recent. They were published in like late 2024. So this, honestly, the women's studies professor and the law professor obviously hadn't looked at the latest science when they opined on it. And I also want to say there's this really hilarious thing at the bottom of that article that the USA Today, where they say rate the fairness of this article. And it uncritically advances the left's ideological position of defending corporate profits with birth control pills and also the destruction of family, which has deeper implications for society. The GOP senatorial candidate is absolutely right about that. I've been reading J.D. Ewan, who wrote Sex and Culture, and a culture that is chaste before marriage and has lifetime monogamy is it has much more energy. It's much more, it has more progression in its technology and its art and literature. and societies that sort of deteriorate into sexual license have 3 generations before they implode, and we are on generation 3 with the Zoomers.
Yeah.
So this really does have implications for our the continuity of our society.
Yeah.
But and look at this freaking thing. This meter, when you click on it, it says it's centrist fair, and the only people that they talked to were not endocrinologists, they weren't chemists, they weren't even anybody in the pharmacy industry. They were just 2 ideologically possessed individuals in law and women's studies. All right, let's go. Do contraceptive pills affect attraction?
Do you want me to read that?
Let me just read the subtitle. Stopping oral contraceptives may enhance the appeal of alternative partners. It's a long article, so I don't know if we can get through. Let's do it.
Okay, well, I apologize for my air conditioner. There's nothing I can do about it. It's hot as fuck over here. So, a high-quality romantic relationship offers many benefits, including better health and higher reproductive fitness. In their attempt to form such a beneficial relationship, people are guided by mechanisms that evolved to help them identify the most suitable person in their social milieu. For example, they show a preference for body odor that signals compatibility with potential mate's immune system. When they find such a desirable partner, people typically strive to maintain the relationship by employing strategies that protect it against the allure of alternate mates. Commonly used contraceptive pills may change natural mate preferences, however. These pills introduce hormones that suppress ovulation and lead to temporary fertility loss, similarly to what happens during pregnancy. Consequently, heterosexual women's perception of men may serve a different function than that occurring around ovulation. They may pursue a cooperative partner who assists with childcare rather than a genetically compatible partner. Women may therefore revert to having opposite mate preferences, becoming fixed on seeking less genetically compatible men whose body odor resembles that of their apparently supportive genetic relatives. To the extent that contraceptive pill use alters mate preferences, women who had taken hormonal contraceptives while meeting their partner and later discontinued their usage, as many do when they wish to conceive, may feel disenchanted with their initial partner choice. Indeed, the use of hormonal contraceptives may not only affect initial partner choice, but also have unintended consequences for women's relationship satisfaction if contraceptive pill use subsequently changes. Prior studies have provided evidence for this hypothesis, indicating that women who had used hormonal contraceptives when they first met their partner and then ceased to take them experience lower levels of sexual and relationship satisfaction and are more likely to get divorced. In research published recently in Evolutionary Psychological Science, my colleagues and I sought to examine whether the adverse relationship implications of cessation of contraceptive pill use in women who use pills during relationship onset extend to an increased likelihood of attraction to alternate partners. In 2 studies, we examined whether women who had used hormonal contraceptives during relationship formation and later discontinued that usage would be particularly likely to find attractive alternate mates sexually appealing during the fertile phase of their menstrual cycle, as compared to women who either had not used pills at relationship formation or had done so but did not stop using the pills. In study number 1, we examined whether heterosexual women who had used pills while meeting their current partner but had discontinued their usage would be particularly likely to experience sexual desire for attractive alternate mates. For this purpose, romantically involved female participants watched videos of 2 men who introduced themselves as potential partners on dating sites. One of these men was conventionally sexually attractive and described himself as a, quote, bad boy, end quote, using traits that are associated with masculinity but low dependability. For example, sensation-seeking, easily bored, and adventurous. The other man was average-looking and described himself as an ordinary guy. After watching each video, participants described in narrative form an imaginary date with the man in the video. These descriptions were coded for written expressions of sexual desire for each man. The expressions of desire included expressed interest in pre-sexual or sexual activity, such as kissing, making out, and having sexual intercourse, as well as descriptions of actual engagement in pre-sexual and sexual interactions. The findings reveal that the women who are currently in high fertility phase and had used pills while meeting their current partner, but had discontinued their usage, were more likely to experience sexual desire for the attractive bad boy than for the average-looking ordinary guy. However, the bad boy and the ordinary guy differed not only in physical attractiveness, but also in dependability. Hence, it is unclear whether women preferred the bad boy because of his attractiveness or his undependability.
Can I just get in here for a second? I can just get in here for a second. First of all, this is confirming everything we were saying. It also sort of disconfirms what that GOP senator is saying. We don't necessarily want men to be attracted to the bad boy, or sorry, women to be attracted to bad boys. So this might be an outcome that's not great. However, there's that, like Karen was talking, there's other issues around smell and such.
Well,
but
and there's also other issues regarding, because if you have two profiles and the one looks like an ordinary schlub and the other looks like, when I was searching Amazon for polo shirts for my husband, right? Ooh, there was this one guy that I wouldn't kick him out of bed for eating crackers, and he was just an extremely masculine male model with beautiful venous vasculature, right? Architecture in his arms, and very fit and all of that, and I was just like, that guy. Ugh, if I was young and good looking, like honestly, like you don't find somebody who's not incredibly physically attractive, right? Normally a woman does not find that man attractive until she gets to know him, right? Which means she gets to talk with him.
But the point is that they're trying to determine what the attractiveness is based on their relationship to hormonal.
But here's the thing, right? The entire thing about dependability, right, might be a red herring. It might be just like a confound that's in there, right? That has no bearing. Like,
yes,
maybe
that's what they're trying to do with the second study. So let's keep reading. I just wanted to point that out. Also, you can't smell a man through a photo. So let's keep going, Brian.
Okay, to address this limitation, in study 2, we included no information about the men's characteristics other than their appearance, so that the women were exposed to men who differed from each other mainly in their physical attractiveness. Specifically, romantically involved female participants performed a visual cueing computerized task that assessed how efficient they were at withdrawing their attention from photos of attractive and average-looking men in order to categorize an object appearing in a different location on the screen. This task involved less conscious, rationally based preferences than the measures employed in previous studies. Hence, it was less likely to evoke demand characteristics or other motivational biases when recording participants' reactions to alternative mates. Study 2 replicated study 1's findings, showing that the women who were currently in high fertility phase and had used pills while meeting their current partner but discontinued their usage were especially likely to monitor attractive alternative mates. Together, these studies demonstrated that women who had stopped using pills and were currently in high fertility phase were particularly vulnerable to feeling desire for attractive alternatives, suggesting that the disillusionment that follows the cessation of pill use lessens women's motivation to employ strategies that protect their relationship from attractive alternatives. These conclusions, however, should be viewed with caution. For one,
okay, so they're doing the usual, like limited, blah, blah, blah. And also, since these conclusions don't benefit the pharmaceutical industry, we're probably not going to see the large scale, very expensive longitudinal studies.
And they don't benefit the pharmaceutical industry, and they don't benefit that feminist ideology either.
No.
Right?
So you're not going to see the necessary large scale longitudinal studies to start to, but of course, we don't need those when it does benefit the pharmaceutical industry and it does benefit the feminist ideological complex. We don't need that.
No. And if God, there was a point that I wanted to make as well. In terms of, God damn it, I lost it.
While Karen is attempting to get that point, let's go to the final thing, which is my recreation of David Futrelle's article on the subject.
Oh, okay. So we're going to play. This is David Futrelle. He writes on a blog called We Hunted the Mammoth. Apparently, he's still out there doing stuff.
Well, he took a hiatus, but apparently he's back. And he used to target us for a lot of shit. But yeah, let's
Yeah.
have a look.
So you want to
This
just
is
listen to
mainly
it?
the comedy part of all of this. Yeah, sure. Let's listen.
All right. Should I just play? We're gonna play this all the way through. Okay. Here we go.
Or
Pill
just
makes
we
women
might
horny.
we might stop
What?
it, but
Okay.
go
Okay.
back to
Here
the
we go.
beginning. But
The pill
I'll give
makes
you an
women
example.
horny for girly men is now a GOP talking point by David Futrelle, June 14th, 2025. And Schwartz, the GOP candidate for the U.S. Senate in Minnesota, wants you to know that the birth control pill causes women to be attracted to effeminate girly boys instead of alpha cavemen like they should be. It doesn't, but he wants you to know that anyway. In an appearance on the right-wing Meg Ellefson radio show, the GOP hopeful helpfully explained that women, if they are natural, not on birth control, they're actually more attracted to more alpha caveman types, but that birth control changes that, basically brainwashing women into being attracted to beta soy boys. I don't know. Soy boy is so 2017. Why not update the insult? Call them pill boys. Now, if you're not intimately familiar with the online discourse about birth control, Schwartz's claim may seem a bit unhinged, and it is. But for a time, claims like this had a certain almost
100%
legitimacy.
is it.
Some small-scale evolutionary psychology studies suggested that there were subtle shifts in women's mate preferences across their menstrual cycles. Women, at their most fertile moments, were said to prefer men with more masculine faces, that is, somewhat broader, with sharper jawlines and so forth. Women on the pill, or so it was claimed, were missing out on this horny, fertile, alpha-hungry phase each month, and so tended to prefer boring but stable beta providers to sexy alphas. Dads, not cats. That's right. For some reason, the family values crowd thinks it's outrageous that any woman might prefer dudes who make good fathers over those who might make for better one-night stands. Allegedly. But this research has basically turned out to be bullshit. A 2019 study of over 6,000 women found no meaningful link between pill use and preference for masculine faces. In short, no, the pill is not turning women into beta male-seeking zombies. Apparently right-wing ideologues and online influencers haven't heard the news, because boy do they love repeating the birth control makes women horny for betas claim. Ben Shapiro and Michaela Peterson
It
have both
doesn't make
pushed
them
this line on
horny for
YouTube.
betas.
No, it doesn't. It just makes
Wait,
them not.
you're
not
ruining his
attractive.
straw man. Let him have his straw man. You're ruining
It-
the
it
straw
makes them-
man.
It makes them horny for no one. Okay, and then they're like, okay, well, I want to have babies. I want to have a boyfriend, so why not you?
Yeah. Somebody said it sounds
Oh.
like Snoop Dogg. Yes, that's the joke.
Yes, that's yes.
That's the joke.
Why didn't you do Flava Flav?
Because
No,
I'm limited in how many voices I can choose. So
There
I
aren't
just
that many
chose
options. I would have done Ryan Reynolds though.
If I had that option, I might have.
Or Michael Cera. That would have been perfect.
I mean, yes, but I didn't. Oh, yeah, that would have.
Or Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
But-
Well, again, there are not a lot of options, so I just went with the most ridiculous. Okay, let's finish.
All right.
And TikTok, respectively. Every magazine, an online women's magazine infamous for pushing right-wing talking points, has declared flat out that the pill essentially picks our partners for us. If you're on the birth control pill and in a relationship, the boyfriend or husband you pick would likely not be the one you choose if you were off the pill. Meanwhile, right-wing influencer Alex Clark is convinced that birth control doesn't just make women attracted to girly men, it can make them attracted to actual girlies. Clark, who hosts the Turning Point USA YouTube show, has told her unfortunately vast audience of mostly young women that the pill can falsely make women feel bisexual. It can't. Insisting that the pill is completely altering your personality, Clark has made it her mission to get young women off this pill. Unfortunately, she's
Hey.
not the only one, by a long shot.
Okay, is anybody noticing what they're leaving out from this? Okay, it can temporarily change your personality.
Mm.
What else temporarily changes women's personalities?
A baby?
Yeah, postpartum depression or postpartum dysphoria or psychosis. But I don't know. Those three little letters that feminists lose their
PMS.
minds whenever you say them. PMS. PMS. Okay? Changes women's psychology. Oh no. But it's it's perfectly fine to have a woman who could be suffering PMS or PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is like PMS on steroids, right? Okay, which are also hormones. By the way, steroids are hormones. PMS. She can have her finger on the nuclear button. That's no problem, right? But okay, we need to give women paid period leave for when they're PMSing, right? And we need to give women like some leeway when they're PMSing and they cry on the job, right? They break down on the job. They just lose their shit, lock themselves in a fucking bathroom and sob on the job. Okay? Yeah, no, like it affects them in terms of those things, right? You should give them 3 paid days off a month, and you should really be, and they shouldn't, if they drown their 5 children in a fucking bathtub, okay, you can't blame them. They had postpartum psychosis, right? If they strangle their freaking newborn with a pair of thong panties and throw it over the neighbor's fence into the neighbor's backyard, right? Okay. You can't. Okay, she was influenced by hormones that were surging in the wake of giving birth, right? And so you can't blame her. But it's okay for her to have her finger on the nuclear button, and it also has nothing to do with the woman's choice of who to form relationships with.
Okay, let us get a little bit more into this because we are running out of time. So let's.
All right.
Yep.
Anti-pill propaganda is everywhere on social media, especially on TikTok, where a veritable army of influencers has been spreading alarmist misinformation about hormonal birth control for years. One 2024 study found that 50% of TikTokers who talked about the pill encouraged their followers to get off it.
You actually
2023 study found
TikTok informers, but you did not find the 2024 studies that confirmed that the birth control pill has an effect on women's preferences. Okay, I've watched this multiple times.
It also has an effect on your health, and it also has a long-term effect on your fertility.
Yep. Yeah, it does. All of these things. I mean, he's not arguing that. He's just saying that the birth control pill doesn't make women prefer girly men.
Well, it doesn't make them prefer men who don't look like Dave Futrelle.
Yes. I'm actually finding that a little hilarious that in both cases we've got guys saying, well, women on the birth control, they don't prefer men like me, and women on the birth control, off the birth control, don't prefer men like me. So, I mean, they're all there. There's a certain amount of bias, I think, both ways.
Sure. But, my bias is the science clearly suggests, right, that being on the pill affects women's mate choices, right? And that when they go off the pill, they're often not happy with what they chose.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Right?
And that's
you can look at the pill too, right? And the increasing divorce rates and the increasing rates of single motherhood.
The concern is exactly that. When women are on the pill and they select a partner, and then they go off the pill, they go off that partner. That is the problem, regardless if they're selecting a femboy or Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, it doesn't matter. The problem is that the relationship discord that results, the destruction of relationships, those relationships form the bedrock of our society. That's what people are concerned about. Yes, the GOP senatorial candidate is approaching this from women should be naturally attracted to men like me. And David Futrelle is women should be attracted to men like me. Yes, they're both approaching it sort of erroneously, but the real problem is that women are not attracted to the men that they chose to start a life with. That's the problem. And I just want David Futrelle just goes off into the weeds after this. So just pop up that one study and we'll go through it really quickly, because I found it finally. I figured out what he's talking about. I found it, and I have one really big problem with it. Okay. It took a population of women on the pill and a population of just women. So women were not on the pill, but they were anywhere in their cycle. So, and by law of averages, there are going to be some women at the beginning of their menstrual cycle, some women in the middle of their menstrual cycle, close to ovulation, some women in the menstrual part of their menstrual cycle. And they compared a population without controlling where those women were in their menstrual cycle, as far as I can know, to a population on hormonal birth control. Now, this is just a really quick look at that study, but that's not going to find the results. You need to compare women on birth control to women specifically in the ovulatory phase of their cycle, as close as you can get to that.
No, pre-ovulatory and ovulatory.
Pre-ovulatory. Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to premenopausal and just immediately following menopausal.
Yeah. So
menstrual rather.
This study sounds like it has a problem along that score, that it didn't control for that. Because we're not saying that overall women on the pill have different preferences than women in general. We're saying that they have different preferences for women who are fertile. There you go. And also, they just looked at masculinization of faces. That's not the big problem, okay? If it was just, he looks a little doughy, but he's my guy, you could get over that. But he looks a little doughy and he smells like ass is much
he smells like fucking a mound of goat testicles left out in the sun for too long on castration day at the halal farm. Yeah.
Because every part, like your entire hormonal and reproductive process is telling you to get the fuck away from him and find another man who doesn't smell like goat testicles, right? That's the problem. Now, we can't go much further into this because I know that Brian has to get going. So, Karen, do you have any brief comment to that? Because I think we can end with the goat testicles.
I think we can end with the goat testicles. It just reminds me to remind my son, who now has a girlfriend, my youngest, that he needs to ask her if she's on the pill.
Mm-hmm.
And if she is, tell her that she needs to go off of it before they really commit.
Yes. All right. And that's the line of it. Women need to be informed about this. And we need to either, if we're going to continue to do this, which, maybe is not a great idea because this hormonal shit's having lots of disruptive effects on people's development. But if we're going to continue with this, we at least need to give women information about how this can affect their relationships and their attraction to the men in their lives, so that they can make informed choices about their pill use. And we also need to maybe create a way of helping women get off the pill and retain interest in their life partners. Or we just need to inform them and they need to make steps not to get into committed relationships with men that they haven't smelled after they've
if you want to know whether you're really attracted to a man, you need to be off the pill for at least 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And just after he works out, before he has a shower, just stick your freaking face into his armpit and just huff that shit. And if it smells good, he's the guy.
Yep. All right. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for your kind attention. If any point after the show you want to send us a message, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. I'm going to just check really quickly here to see if we got anything. Nope. So, and if you would like to support the show, feedthebadger.com/support. Thank you, Brian, for staying late. And please hit the bell for subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and share, because sharing is caring. And give us a comment in the place below. If you're interested in anything that we've covered, it's in the low bar. And thank you again for your kind attention. See you in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.